What happens when a plane loses pressurization at 35,000 feet? Are the passengers and crew okay? Well, they should be as long as they have their oxygen masks. Let's find out. It all starts with a bang as the simulated loss of cabin pressure at 35,000 feet sends the oxygen masks hurtling down from their compartments. Now, in a real emergency, the masks would deploy from the ceiling in around 10 seconds after the pilots put the plane into emergency descent. But for our purposes, we're going to simulate that loss of pressurization and the deployment of the oxygen masks all at once. Now, normally, the air inside the aircraft cabin is pressurized to around 8,000 feet, even though the plane might be cruising at 35,000 feet. That means that the air has been compressed so that there's enough oxygen for everyone on board. That's because if the plane were to lose pressurization at 35,000 feet, everyone on board would be in serious danger of dying from hypoxia, or a lack of oxygen to the brain. That's actually what happened on a United Airlines flight in 1988. The pilots forgot to turn the oxygen back on after a routine check, and the passengers started showing signs of hypoxia, including a loss of consciousness. Luckily, the crew realized what had happened and put the oxygen back on before anyone died. But in this simulation, we're going to show what happens if the crew doesn't respond in time. As the passengers put their oxygen masks on, we can see the altitude in the upper left corner start to climb as the plane begins its emergency descent. Now, normally, the plane would be able to maintain a safe cabin altitude by drawing in air from outside the plane and pressurizing it in the cabin. But if there was a problem with the pressurization system, like a leak in the plane's skin or a malfunction in the system itself, then the air inside the cabin would start to leak out into the outside world. That's what's happening in this simulation. So the only way to prevent the passengers from dying from hypoxia is to get the plane down to a lower altitude where the air naturally has more oxygen in it. As the plane descends, we can see the altitude in the upper left corner dropping. At around 10,000 feet, the air outside the plane has around 21% oxygen, which is enough to keep people alive. That's why planes usually cruise at altitudes where they need to pressurize the cabin, to keep passengers alive, since the air at those higher altitudes doesn't have enough oxygen. In this simulation, the pilots managed to get the plane down to 10,000 feet in time, but in a real emergency, things could go wrong. The plane could lose control, or the pilots could pass out from hypoxia themselves. In that case, the emergency descent would continue until the plane was at an altitude where people could breathe again. So, what would happen to the passengers in that scenario? Well, let's find out in the next episode. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.